Hello and welcome to another episode of Mysteries with a History, where I'll take you on the wild ride into the unknown, the strange, and the mysterious. Like you, I have questions, and like you, I want answers. First, I want to say hi to people in the live chat. Gilbert, Royston, Jonocide, Creepy Little Book. Hey, Pete, how are you? Stefan hides in long grass. Deb, how is everyone doing today? Well, here we are again in an uncertain world where it seems that there's always some kind of a global threat, an impending doom ready to threaten the continuity of the human race, whether through illness or war. It becomes so difficult to imagine a better future for our species. I always say, keep your eyes on the skies, but this morning I was wondering if all the eyes above were on us, observing us as a species. And I found myself hoping not. But we can't give up hope. Each of us, as individuals, we have to watch out for each other. Why do I say this? Because we need each other for inspiration, for compassion, for understanding. It's all too easy to feel helpless, like a little fish in a world that seems on the brink of chaos. But we have each other. We have our joint interests and fascination for things much bigger, for those answers we're seeking to the age old questions of the universe. Which brings me to the topic of the show today. One which has been requested a lot, and that is the mystery of the gray aliens. We're not going to question if they're real or not, but rather dig into the vast amounts of reports, of stories, of encounters, and of the subtle differences in the description of their appearances, and also what they could possibly be. And for that, let me bring in my friend and co host, Jimmy Church of KUNX Talk Radio and of Fade to Black Radio. Jimmy, how are you today?
Oh man, hey, I can't even. Hold on for a second. Let me do this. Then I am going to do. I think it's this. Yeah, there we go. Okay, now I can see myself. I can see you. I've got StreamYard up. I was looking at. I'm sorry. Hello, everybody. How is everybody doing? And I was looking at some pictures that I want to bring up later on in the show of our little gray friends, or not. Are they not friends? And we'll discuss all of that tonight. What a great subject to talk about today, the gray aliens. And but before we jump off, I want to say that my thoughts, our thoughts, are with the families over in the Ukraine right now. I'm just horrified of what is going on, and I can't imagine being a parent what they are going through over there. So I just wanted to say that out of the gate. I recognize what's going on. So there you go.
Jimmy, there have been a lot of theories doing the rounds for many years now about the origin of the Greys, with such examples as being organic clones, to
Mhm.
cyborgs, robots, time travelers, containers for souls, interdimensionals, and even evolved humans from the future or the past. Sometimes they have even shown up in front of abductees as phantasms or ghost like in appearance. What's the strangest form of appearance you've heard of, Jimmy?
The strangest. Okay, we're just going to start there out of the gate. Um, I'm not so sure if I have a category like that in that, and what I mean is there. We have short, we have mid-sized, we have tall, we have thin, we have pot-bellied. We have teeth, no teeth, nose, no nose, interdimensional, traveling through walls, physical, robotic, biological, combination of android and biological. We have clones. We have, of course, hybrid situations too, as well, that many have talked about, including, Bashar, and descriptions of that. So, what would be the strangest? I think, all of the above. I have my statue over there that I'm reminded of all the time, and I think about that. And then we have um, the cover of Communion, and that face, on Whitley Strieber's book, and then there is that aspect, and then we can take it all the way over to, which I would like to talk a lot about today, is Skinny Bob. And the we'll talk more about this in a second, but when I look at Skinny Bob, whether the film or what you think about the film and so forth, that's something we'll discuss in a bit. But when you look at Skinny Bob, the head is ginormous with a skinny neck, and it's got a different feel to it as well. Now, back to your question, the strangest thing. I have to look at, I always go back to numbers. And I think that with all of the planets and the size of just our galaxy, forget about the universe, just our galaxy, that there must be many thousands of species and extraterrestrial civilizations that have similarities to us. The Greys don't differentiate a whole lot from us, right? Two ears, two eyes, nose, mouth, hands, two arms, two legs. They walk, and that is like what DNA probably represents throughout the universe. So what we could be, and the descriptions of so many, I haven't had my own, I don't think, and we'll circle back to that, because I did have one crazy encounter, but there must be thousands, that are visiting us, because the descriptions from so many different people are similar but different, similar but
Right.
different, similar but different, and also with different emotions, attitudes, very very different jobs too as well. What were they doing, and who were they when they were amongst other aliens? What was the hierarchy there? So there's all of this. So what is the strangest? I'm going to have to say all of the above, Christina, and it's not a cop out. It's not a cop out at all.
And you covered so many things in just a few sentences, because that there is just so much to cover when it comes to the topic of the Greys. A lot of people that have had encounters usually deal with them compared to other races. The Greys is kind of the most prevalent, and we're going to get into that. But the first thing that I want to bring up is kind of the first documented description of the Greys. And it was like a pretty thorough description, and it was actually by H.G. Wells in 1893. Now, he wasn't describing an alien, but instead, he was describing how we would look in the future if we follow the theory of Darwinism. And that really blew my mind. And the way that he describes it is practically your typical type of looking gray. And I'm going to share what the picture looks like from the kind of like an article section that he wrote. Here it is. Let me just pull it up. And the fact that this was written in 1893 is pretty fantastical. Let me show you how it looks. So as you can tell,
Yes. Oh, yeah.
as you can tell, this obviously the eyes are a little bit smaller, but the head is huge. The body is very, very tiny. And he goes and writes, let me stop sharing my screen. Okay. So he writes that if we're following the idea of Darwinism, we understand that we're constantly evolving as other animals do. And with birds, they evolve to have wings and they're able to fly. Fish evolve to have fins and they're able to swim. Well, the same thing can go for humans. And it's universally accepted by zoologists and botanists in 1893, the idea of Darwinism. And he went ahead and stated that if we did evolve from apes, as time progresses, we're going to keep losing more hair. We're going to keep losing a prominent jawline and going to a more intelligent type of species where the body is not as necessary as the brain. And that's why the head is going to be so large so that it can kind of contain all of our future intelligence. But he goes ahead and he writes in this section. It says he goes into detail and he says, "What we will not need will disappear. What we don't use so far is our external ears, our nose, and the brow ridge. Well, what we can expect in the future is to have very large, lustrous eyes, beautiful, as he claims, which I guess beauty's in the eye of the beholder, no craggy nose, and the mouth is small, perfectly round aperture, toothless and gumless, jawless and unanimal like." That was a really interesting aspect to take, especially during this time period in the 1800s. And he kind of gives the first description of what we believe grays look like in present day. What are your thoughts on that, Jimmy?
When we go back, not only to his description, but if we go back and try to examine what represents an alien gray, certainly today as we know them, how have they popped up in history? And of course, with H.G. Wells, we have that. In a second, I'm going to share a screen image of what I think was one of the progenitors, one of the origins of at least a reveal of grays. But if we go back throughout history and we look at folklore of beings in the woods and descriptions of not only, I mean, we can go with something basic like a leprechaun. What was this? Short little, running around. Um, were these grays? And without another way to describe what was going on and what people saw and were seeing, that became part of mythology, and that's great, and storytelling. But everything has an origin somewhere.
That's right.
Now, the grays themselves, as more and more sightings and encounters started to happen, that evolved, and took off in the mid 60s and the 70s. If we go back to some of the descriptions, and in a second I'll share the screenshot, is that's not what Betty and Barney Hill necessarily described at first. Who came off the craft, wearing uniforms and definitely were human feeling. But Betty's sculpture that she made later of one of the beings on the craft was absolutely 100% what we know today as a gray. There's no question about it. And she took that head, that sculpture that she made, I think it was like paper mache and chicken wire, to UFO conferences, would drive around in the car, would show it to anybody and tell them the story behind it. I found that fascinating. But if we back up, let's back up and let me move this over to this monitor. Okay. And let me close this out.
And Betty and Barney Hill were kind of the first people to really bring up grays, and it became kind of more mainstream, became part of the UFO culture a lot more. But the first incident,
not so fast, young one. Not
Well,
so
they made it more mainstream, but they weren't the first people that had interactions with aliens, as we know from our knowledge of the past. But the way that they described it, the attention that they got from it, they made it more mainstream. Now, Deb says, I sent you both a clip of Richard Doty confirming Skinny Bob is 100% real from Johnny Enoch interview, which Johnny Enoch is now a part of KUNX, which is very exciting. So I will look at it. I haven't seen that interview, but thank you for sending to me and Jimmy, Deb. So here's the picture that Jimmy is talking about.
now. This is Lamb, Lam. And this is the drawing that Aleister Crowley did in the 1930s, 1920s, 1930s. And this was the being that he was channeling and encountered and met. And this is his drawing. Now, if we look at this, I don't think that there is any way that we could just say that's not a gray, because that is a gray. That's 100% a gray alien. And it's no ears, probably just holes on the side in stereo, the small nose, the small mouth, and the eyes are squinting here. But how would this appear if Lamb was opening his eyes? But this is Aleister Crowley, and this predates everything by 30 and 40 years, moving up to Betty and Barney Hill. But that is a fascinating, unbelievably amazing drawing by Aleister Crowley.
And what year was this?
I can guesstimate. I can actually pull it up. Hold on. I've got too many monitors going. Okay, so let me pull this over. See, if I pull this over here, we get this, and then you have to stop. There you go. Okay. So this was let's see. Let me get a date. I am actually on oh. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
1918.
Wow. And we've talked about him about Lamb on the show before, but I couldn't remember the date. So that's that's pretty early.
I thought it was 1928. 1918. Yes.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. And so I'll never forget, just a little side note. But I think all of us at one point in our lives, you get fascinated with Aleister Crowley for one reason or another. For me, it was, like Ozzy Osbourne in the song Aleister Crowley and Mr. Crowley. And I got a book and I got and I'm flipping
And you
through
have the shirt that
and
you're wearing right now, kind of. Looks somewhat like it.
you like
Right?
that?
Do you want to stand up and show it? Show what it looks like for everyone to see?
That's for later when we talk about what ETs eat, and what we will get back to that, because this is documented proof of what they eat for dinner. I'm flipping through and I see this picture of Lamb, and I don't know the story behind Lamb. I'm just looking at this picture in this Crowley book, and I'm thinking that's an ET. Right. And then I found out, and the way that Aleister started communication and the reason why he drew this was even more fascinating. He was channeling and possibly made contact, and this is what he saw, and this is what he drew. And he had a name, Lamb.
Well, let's kind of talk about what the Greys look like, because as we're going along, we're coming to understand that they all look slightly different. I guess kind of in the sense like people. No two people look exactly alike, not even twins. And it seems that even with these Greys, no matter what belief that you may have of what these beings could be, they all look slightly different. But there are two basic types of gray aliens.
Mm-hmm.
You have tall gray aliens and you have short gray aliens. And they also have slightly different skin tones. You go anywhere from gray, that's why they're called gray aliens, right? So you got like a nice pasty gray, you can get a pinkish beige, and even brown aliens as well. But what we do know for a fact, regardless of what kind you may look at, they all have incredibly large heads. Like super big compared to the rest of their body. And some have even described, and this really caught my attention. Richard Dolan mentioned in his book that he just published, I guess what's been 2 years now, called The Alien Agendas, a speculative analysis of those visiting Earth. He writes a very interesting chapter about the Greys, and he wrote something that I've never read for anyone that's had an encounter with Greys, but he went ahead and stated that when looking at the eyes, we all know that their eyes are usually very big. Sometimes they can be a little bit smaller than others. But it says usually frequent with a subtle fluid or liquid quality. Have you heard that before in any of the stories that you've encountered?
Yes, I have.
Why
And
do you think that is?
well, I want to go back to your uh,
Pasty.
pasty, pasty comment, and then we'll come back to this. It goes back to what I had said earlier. There is just no way that there is just one species of gray out there. There's just no way. It's got to be. It's not infinite, but it's pretty close. There must be thousands, if not tens of thousands, just right here in our Milky Way. And Christina, yes, see that right there. That is a perfect example because Christina, I'm looking at you here, and so is everybody else. And then take a look at me. We come from two different planets. And if
Mars and Venus, right?
yeah, Mars and Venus. And I'm not kidding about this because if you and I went to another planet and materialized in somebody's house and they saw us, they wouldn't see the same things.
That's right.
They wouldn't. They just wouldn't. So when we look at these different faces that are here, and the lower left one, that is your communion ET. That is just incredible. Over to the right, the lower right hand corner, that is like the land of the lost. That's what that reminds me of. But if we look at all of these, and the one in the middle on the top, no, top row right there, that is a representation of a pretty famous photograph that I think it was taken by Stan Romanek of an ET in his closet that was hiding out. That's what that, and that photograph is seen a lot on the internet, and I think it also represents quite a bit of contact, as do though all of these images here. And if we were doing a police lineup and we had a bunch of contactees and they were looking at this, I'm not so sure if everybody would pick the same one. I just don't see that.
I agree with you. I don't think they would all pick the same one either. And this drawing is from that book by Richard Dolan, and it was drawn by Sherry Miller for those that are interested to find it online. I couldn't find it online. I could only find it in the book. So I just want to let people know if they did want to find it. But you're right. When it comes to all of those slight variations, you can tell that they're possibly they have the same kind of genetics, but just slightly different. Just like how you said, you and I, we're both human. At least I think so on your behalf. But we have similar characteristics, but we don't look the exact same.
We're not even in. No, we're not even. No, we're not from the same planet, and which is okay because if you just think about the diversity of humans on this planet, the different colors of hair and eyes and body shapes and types and facial structures and obviously skin color and curly hair, bald, long hair, whatever. We just look different. And if you got the extremes of each version, I mean, we're Guardians of the Galaxy. We're going to look that different for sure. Now, can we shift gears a little bit?
Absolutely. Where do you want to go with this?
I want to go with are they alive? I think this is a really important point. Are they biological? Now, we can go right back to what I said before, thousands of species, right? And so thousands of planets and that's they could be androids. What is every planet sending out, and what is not only living on that planet, but what are they sending out to explore the Milky Way and galaxies? Some may be robotic. There may be another aspect to this, which is are they a clone of themselves that they have modified, eating, sleeping, drinking, the things that you would need for a long journey? How do you circumvent that? Maybe you would do that from cloning. Maybe you would do that with extended sleep sessions. Maybe you would do it with an android. Maybe you would do it with something that's a combination of both. In that you have a robotic skeleton and an operating system, but you have skin that is grown on the outside. All of these things are possible. And when you have this many planets, with this many species, everything may be approached just a little bit differently. And which brings me back to my point. Are they alive or not? The reason why I bring this up, and I think this is so important, is with different encounters and the testimony that is involved with that. We have everything from the tall grays are the bosses to the little grays are the bosses. The little grays are just minions that are just doing the task asked of them from the what did I say? The other alien beings that are out there on the ship or what have you. There's that part. There's another thing that would suggest, because we hear this over and over again, totally void of emotion, right? Totally void. And
Right.
then we go to the extreme of that. And if you go to Communion and Whitley Strieber's description of what is going on, and go and watch the movie too as well, they were full of emotion. There was a ton of emotion there. There was humor there. They were dancing, and so there's that part of it too. So we have going back to what I keep suggesting over and over again. There's just too many planets. There's too many varieties and variations of what could be visiting this planet. But I find that part so fascinating because now I'm going to get to my point. When you're traveling, don't laugh. I'm being very serious. When you're traveling, you can't age. Now, I don't want to get into any Einstein theories and the speed of light and time travel and time space and space time and that's a whole nother discussion for another day. But if we are going to go to the stars, how do we not age? Well, we don't go, right? We would, the best thing to do is create an android version of ourselves, right? 10 fingers, 10 toes, you walk, you do things, you press buttons, you do all of that, but it's going to have the mind uploaded to it. Now you're not aging. You're not getting sick. There's no disease. You don't have to eat food. All you got to do is charge your batteries, right? And you don't have to do anything. You don't have to rest. You don't have to sleep in a bed. You don't even have to have sleeping quarters. As a matter of fact, you could sit in the chair and pilot this craft and run the ship for thousands of years. Is that what the Greys are? And I'm putting this out there because it answers so many questions so easily. Now, before we get into wormholes and bending space and the ability to travel instantly and what okay, there's all of these things you have to take into consideration. But if we just go with traveling, even at the speed of light, and you are in or nearly at the speed of light, and you're in a ship, we're talking about great distances in space. And unless these ET civilizations out there live for 10,000 or a million years at a crack, and they just have a normal lifespan of like us, 100 to 200 years, you're not going to be on that ship. You're going to send your representative, and you're going to upload an AI mindset into that android. And that is probably why the ET little grays don't exhibit emotion. They are just doing the task that was assigned to them.
And that's only logical. We would do the exact same thing, and we're already doing that now. We're sending probes and rovers to our nearby planets. We're not going to be sending ourselves first. What I found really interesting while doing research was in 1992, Betty Hill did a regression session with a man by the name of Fred Max. And she goes kind of on something that I hadn't heard in any Betty and Barney Hill story. This one really blew my mind. When she was remembering what had happened on the ship, she witnessed, and I'm gonna paraphrase here. She witnessed when she was looking around the ship, you had like your elder gray, like your dominant being, hovering over a smaller gray. So you had three aliens in total. You had an elder, you had a red alien that she didn't know how to describe, and then there was a gray alien on a table. And how she said it during this regression session was that the elder took the eyes, like the eyeballs of this red alien, and just kind of pushed it inside of the gray. And that sounds pretty horrific if you're thinking that these are sentient beings, if you believe them to be like living, breathing, conscious things. But if we go into the mindset that if these are merely artificial, then it seems like they're just your typical robots. And what we're doing right here, right now, where we have Sophia, the Sophia robot, and there's quite a few more coming if they haven't come already. And
Yep.
it's just placing an eyeball in like you're playing with a doll. There isn't that sense of I guess compassion or like, oh my gosh, this kind of moral ethic sense. It's just dealing with a robot, and that's it. So that really blew my mind. Not I've never heard it in any of the stories that I've encountered with Betty and Barney Hill. And it just makes more sense if we're going from this story alone. Okay, there's a bunch of encounters. But if we're going from this story alone, it's like, yeah, I mean, I can totally understand it being merely artificial with maybe you get some fleshy type to make it look a little more acceptable, right? Because who wants to interact with metal, nothing but metal? Or even it could even be a cyborg. We simply don't know. Maybe like half organic, half artificial. It's a pretty fascinating thing to talk about, to even think about. And us humans at this point in time in the 21st century, we're already getting there. We're already going towards that path of kind of in a sense of cyborgs, people that have an amputated arm or a leg, right? These body modifications, and they can just kind of have another limb that's working pretty well. And then you also have microchips under the skin. So it seems like we're coming towards that path of having half and half, or having things that are similar to the grays and even plug into our artificial realities. It's
Yeah, these are all
the
really good.
roads are endless.
Yeah, I like your adventuristic mind and the way that you take a look at this, because I agree with all of that. And everything has to be, I mean, absolutely has to be considered, because there's just too much variety out there. Just our little planet. We've got millions. I think the latest tally that I have read, it gets added to and subtracted from every day. species go extinct and new species are found. But 7.5 million different species of things on this planet, just here, right? And if we consider we have Homo sapien, right? But what about all of the primates? And it's not, we're just a chromosome, we're actually a pair of chromosomes off of nearly identical DNA to the primates. And obviously we know we can look at a monkey or chimpanzee or an ape and see ourselves. We absolutely do. And so it has to apply the same way out there into the universe. Now, here's another strange thing. Now, it's not 100%, but nearly every encounter with the gray has not been violent or nasty, in that there's not too many encounters out there of a fist fight with a gray, right? You don't hear about that. Why it doesn't happen, I don't know, because they look pretty frightening to me. And we're going to get to that, my point in this, in just a second. So there isn't, as crazy as they may look and as frightening as they tend to just do their task. Now, when we get into the hybrid programs and removing of different fluids and eggs and sperm and things from our bodies and those procedures that happen, yeah, that's pretty gnarly, and none of us want to go through that. But is there anything violent? Is there grays with laser guns? You don't hear about this. You don't hear about violent, angry things that are going down. Now, this is my experience, and I'm going to share this with everybody. If you heard it before, I apologize. I'm going to keep it brief. 1995, I'm living alone, and it's a little past 2 a.m. I'm in my bedroom, in bed, and I think I've got an intruder, a burglar. That's what I'm thinking, in my home. And I'm not going to get into specifics because I don't want to tarnish or what's the word that I want to use? I don't want to put ideas or thoughts into other people's heads. I'm going to keep all of the main stuff to myself. But this is what happened. So I'm on my back. I open up my eyes, and my room it's dark because the lights are off, but it's lit up because I have a balcony with sliding glass doors to my right, and the blinds are open, right? So the moonlight's coming in. You can see everything in the room. That's the way that I slept. And so I look down, and at the foot of my bed, off to the right, in front of the sliding glass doors, is a dude. And he's about, behind him, I have a stereo speaker on a stand. And I know how tall that stand is, right? And that's in the corner of the room. And he's to the right of that. And he's standing, his head is above that. So I don't know, the stereo speaker's probably 3.5 feet tall, on the stand. And he's like that tall. And he's in front, looking at me. And I freak.
Yeah.
And so, and it's one of those things where I'm looking at you, you're looking at me, we know we're looking at each other. This thing is going down. And this lasts for, my guess is about 15 minutes. And, but I wasn't thinking alien yet, but I was thinking about some ass kicking was about to go down. And I'm already playing this out in my mind. I don't know if it was sleep paralysis or if I was being controlled. I don't know, but I wanted to reach over and turn on. I had lamps on both sides on nightstand, so I wanted to get to this one because it's away from him, and I couldn't do it. And I'm looking at him, my head's up on the pillow, and we're looking at each other, but, and all of a sudden I can move. And so when this happens, and it was kind of weird, I moved a body part and I went, okay, all right, okay, it's go time. Some Bruce Lee is about to go down. I'm going to karate chop this dude in the neck, right? I got this whole thing played out, how I'm going to do this. And I spin out, and he's right there. And I reach over and I turn on the lamp. And I look, and he's gone. Now, you have to remember, the room was lit up with the moonlight. It's not like it was, completely dark. No, I could see everything in the room. White walls and stuff. But when in that instant, and I turn and he's gone, I thought he went out the sliding glass door. And so I jump up out of bed, I run over, sliding glass door is locked from the inside, and the blinds weren't moving. And I'm looking outside, and I didn't think about, looking up for a craft or anything. It didn't pop in my head. But what I was thinking was maybe he got past me and now he's in my house. So what was that? Tell me that was you making noise.
Yeah, that was me. Don't worry about it.
I don't need that while I'm telling this story. It's just like, what is going? Okay. All right. My adrenaline, that freaked me out. That sounded like it came from in here. Okay. So I jump up, I go through the house, I turn on all of the lights. I go through every room, turn everything on. Nothing's there. Doors are locked. And I come back in. I'm not really calmed down yet. I come back in, I turn on the TV, and I probably stayed up most of the night after that. But now I'm wondering what that was. Okay. So was this your typical gray? Whatever was in my room got in there somehow and got out. I'm going to leave that at that. But this was in the middle of Sherman Oaks, very populated part of the valley. And I immediately jumped into a lot of investigation and research into contact and what other people had encountered. Now, and this is the other thing, and I'm not making this up. I slept with the lights on and the TV on for 10 years. And I didn't stop with the TV. I might have started turning off lights after about 10 years, but it freaked me out that bad. And this is the other part. I didn't tell anybody. I didn't tell a single soul.
Well, there are a few things that you mentioned that I want to get to, but we're coming up against a break. And first, before we go into the break, Eve says, could you please mention a petition at change.org for a public congressional hearing on UAP? People like our cold heart suggests this would be best way to press disclosure. Thank you so much, Eve, for the super chat. I will look into it. It's not something
Ross,
that I'm not too familiar with.
She's talking about Ross Coulthard from Australia. Take your break. I got to get some more coffee. I'll see everybody when we return.
All right. I'll be right back after this.
Hi, I'm Micah Hanks, and let me tell you something. I support Cristina Gomez as a Patreon subscriber, and here's why you should too. She brings all of her unique insights to a whole new generation, and all while she's also going through college. Listen, support Cristina. Become a Patreon subscriber today. You won't regret it.
Hey there, it's Cristina. Did you know you can get access to an exclusive extra segment of additional questions and answers with all of my guests, as well as behind-the-scene videos and photos? Ever wonder how I turn my small college dorm apartment into a studio where I can shoot new videos or set up lighting and backdrops for my show, or what camera I use? Yep, that video is there too, where I explain as I go along and also give the story of how I learned to do special video effects and editing. You can get access to all of that and much more by joining my Patreon supporters club. You'll be helping by supporting this channel, my research, and production costs, as well as investing in new shows coming soon. Starting from as little as $5 a month, there are several tiers you can choose from that suit your budget, and each tier carries extra perks and benefits. Join my Patreon club and become a supporter today.
So one thing that Jimmy mentioned that really caught my attention, but first Deb says, Jimmy, alien was what color? That's a good question, Deb.
I'm not sharing any of that. I'm not sharing anything. The only thing that I have shared outside of what I told you now is this little brief thing. As I'm looking at dude and I'm questioning my sanity, he blinked. And I had a heart attack. That's when I went, okay, oh, whoa. And that's all I'm going to say. That's all I'm going to say.
So one thing that you mentioned that I read about was that your alien encounter moves really fast. And it seems like this is a pretty normal thing that other people have encountered, that they just move very quickly. For instance, from going, you see them at your bedside and then you don't a moment later. Is that because it's missing time, or is it because they can really move that quickly? Something else that I wanted to bring up is that you had stated that no one's really had an encounter why there's no violence, why people don't really go against when interacting with the gray. And what I had seen from the research that I did for today's show was that a lot of people that have had these encounters, again, these are just merely alleged accounts, but for those that have had these encounters, they were stating that if you look into their eyes, it's like a sense of mind control. They can kind of take over what you're thinking. And what they usually tell you when you're on this craft, or if they're holding you down through paralysis, maybe, they constantly say the words like, it's okay, we're not going to hurt you, everything's going to be fine, and things of that nature. Could that just be to soothe us because we kind of like those things, as especially as children, right? When our parents tell us, don't worry, you're going to be okay, everything's fine. That brings us at ease, even as adults when maybe we're in a very scary situation.
Mhm.
Or is it really just because the people that they're interacting with really just need to be to remain calm? We don't know that for a fact. We don't know any of this for a fact, but it is rather fascinating to place that as consideration, that maybe if you look deep into these huge black eyes, that maybe it's a type of mind control. And I mean, I'm not too sure about all of that, but it also seems to use telepathy to communicate directly into the mind as well. And we've heard stories. One of them in particular was during in Colares, Brazil, was when the director of Operação Pilato had stated that when this alien was communicating telepathically through through the director, through the military director, that he was speaking in broken Portuguese, almost in a robotic sense. And I found that kind of bizarre. You would think that sometimes through telepathic messages, it might just be pictures, right? And you kind of assume from there, or symbols. But the fact that it's a language and that you can kind of hear the dialect, that you can kind of hear the accent, I find that kind of odd because even for ourselves, when we think in our minds, right, you can scream inside of your head, but it doesn't really sound like screaming. It sounds like you're just talking, but you're placing that assumption, that intention that you're screaming. But maybe, and I don't know this for a fact because I'm not telepathic, but maybe if we were communicating through someone else and we were screaming, would they notice that we're screaming, or do they have to place their own intention or their own what's the word, like interpretation of
Sure.
what's going on?
Sure. And you're right about all of that. And that's a good way, as far as perception goes, what may be going on. It's a really good way to look at it. And then let's flip this over 180 degrees for a second. And this was a conversation that I've had with Isaac Arthur a couple of times, the physicist. He's been on Fade to Black many times. He's a great mind. And but he said this. He said ET on their way to Earth would have, depending on how far away they're traveling from, they would have thousands of years to study us. So by the time they get here, from the information from those that came before them, right? Sharing information about us here on Earth and them studying us as they travel here, they would know our fears, our emotions, our languages, and certainly what we look like and how they may be offensive to us and frightening to us, and how their appearance would be frightening to us, and they would know how to calm us down. And they would do that in a variety of different ways. Maybe they could change their appearance, right? Okay, and everybody comes off looking like Fabio, right? Whatever, but to change their appearance, or communicate with us in a way that would soothe us and calm our fears, and which goes right back to what you were just saying now. And the other part, addressing the broken Portuguese, the robotic Portuguese, let's go back to what Isaac said. They would know all of our languages, everything on this planet. They would know how to communicate with us. They would know our languages, and not only the languages, but the words and how to communicate without freaking us out, right? And so Portuguese is a tough language even for ET, right? And so broken Portuguese, yeah. I don't even think people from Brazil speak perfect Portuguese, but
Well,
it all addresses your point. And I think all of these things we have to take into consideration.
Well, given their appearance, the question is, what type of environment is it on their home world? Could it be a world orbiting a dim red dwarf star? Because in recent space astronomy news, dull red dwarf stars outnumber other class stars in the galaxy, and they live longer, but the Goldilocks zone, that is, the habitable zone, is closer to the red dwarf stars, and they emit a lot of stormy coronal mass ejections. So those worlds that could be habitable would have low sunlight and lots of solar radiation.
Yep.
So could the Greys come from such a world where they would need big eyes for
Mhm.
the low light levels and leathery skin because of the extensive solar radiation? This is
Bingo.
an interesting theory, and although how we how we think we know where these Greys come from is from Betty and Barney Hill, where Betty believed that they come from Zeta Reticuli. Zeta Reticuli is a binary star system, which makes these stars really what makes these stars really interesting is that relative relatively speaking, there are much like our own sun, making them so-called solar analogs and of interest to astronomers who can compare them to our solar system's host star. And those are not red dwarfs. So it seems like you're kind of having these two competing theories on where they come from.
Yep.
What do you think about that?
No, I am so with you. You are really doing your research. And this is why, okay, so now let's think about this for a second. First off, those red dwarfs that you're talking about are not like our sun. Our sun has a approximate 10 billion year lifespan. We're about halfway through it now. Our planet's 4.5 billion years old. And at the end of that, it is just going to be a lump of coal. And it's going to sit there forever. It's still going to have gravity. It's going to be tiny, smaller than the Earth, but its mass is still there, even though it is not necessarily glowing or emitting any energy. Red dwarfs, on the other hand, can have lifespans of trillions of years. And our universe is only 13.8 billion years old. So a trillion years in the future, red dwarfs are going to be there. We are not. Now let's jump on the evolutionary time scale with this. So how long have these planets been tied to these red dwarfs? Well, our universe is only 13.8 billion years old. So it can't be that long, right? It's not a trillion years. It's not 500 billion years, but it is longer. And you're right. The temperatures are lower. The radiation is different. And you are going to look and see and be a different type of species. You might not even be a carbon and oxygen life form like we are here because of the environment on that specific planet. But I'll say this, even on Earth, nocturnal creatures, big eyes, and they see in a different light spectrum. And part of it is ours, some of it is not. Dogs, cats see differently than us. Then we have bats and bees and insects. And what are they seeing? We have fish deep in the ocean. We have fish, at the top of the ocean with their sunlight and oxygen. And then you have the compression and everything that is happening in the deep waters where the vision is different. So now we have different ways of seeing on the same planet here. So no matter what, another alien species coming to Earth is not going to see in the same light spectrum that we do. And not even the species on this planet necessarily see the same that we do. And we have to take that into consideration. So yeah, absolutely. The big eyes. Yeah. How about no eyes? That's a possibility. Right? I don't know about one eye, maybe three. You got to see in stereo for depth, right? And distances.
Right.
So
Yeah. One eye, you can't do that.
Yeah, if you're going to evolve, you're going to have at least one, or at least two, maybe a third eye. Maybe a third eye. Do you know? It was right at the tip of my tongue. We have reptiles on this planet with 3 eyes. Did you know that?
Which are those?
Did you know that? Lizards got a third eye. Oh, yeah. Look it up.
No, I didn't know that.
It's like church. No, I'm not. Okay. Hold on. And then we're going to get back to the Greys. Reptiles.
Well, you know what? We can talk about it when we talk about reptilians, but today is about the Greys. So, what I found interesting was in 2008, it's very possible that a man in Turkey by the name of Yulsin Yulman took a video of gray aliens. And I'm going to share my screen with you of how a snippet of the video, someone took a screenshot. And while it's not the best quality right here, as you can kind of look, you're seeing these kind of gray looking beings from this craft. And so Yulsun Yulman, a Turkish security night watchman, filmed a UFO in the early morning hours for over 2.5 hours in 2008 and handed over 16 minutes of that footage to a Turkish research agency, which went on to confirm the footage as being genuine. It was filmed over the Sea of Marmara in the early hours of the morning, and apparently that area is a regular hotspot for UFO sightings. Here is another picture of, as you can kind of look at it a little bit better. And it goes ahead and states that the curious thing about the UFO is in some spots of the video, the witness zooms in and you can see two entities which look exactly like your stereotype alien grays. And I'm going to put the link of the full video in the chat room and in the information box. But as you can see, you can look at these pictures for now. The video is quite long, and there is an enhanced copy which I will place for
Did
you
you
to
watch?
look at.
Okay, tell me the truth. Did you watch the whole video, beginning to end?
Well, it's quite long. I did skim through it.
Oh, don't skim
But
through.
it's a fascinating report.
It's one of the best videos ever done, and I've watched it countless times from beginning to end, just staring and staring and staring and seeing what is going on. This is the Turkish video. I believe Dr. Lear was part of this. And here's the other part. I think they shot two sets of videos a year apart in the same area, and incredible to see. It's not just one video, there's many. But wow,
Yeah,
just
the
my
full video is 2.5 hours long of the sighting, so it's pretty long. But to this day, it hasn't been proved to have been a hoax, and there were also other witnesses to that as well. So I feel like it's an honorable mention.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Okay, so where were we? I just posted. Yes, three eyes. Okay, so now Skinny Bob. Skinny friggin' Bob. Since we are talking about videos, okay, do you got an image of Skinny Bob?
Let me look. No, but I can pull it up.
Okay. And I'm not sure, I didn't have a chance to do this, to nail down how long the Skinny Bob video has been out there and its dates of origin. All I know is from my memory, it seems that I've been looking at Skinny Bob for 25 years. I'm going in that ballpark, and if it's 15, I would be shocked. But there's Skinny Bob, and here's the deal with this video, and I can't be any more direct than this. Today, CG and being able to do something like this and create it all day long. When I first saw the Skinny Bob video, that wasn't it wasn't that kind of party. And the original, going back to the first pieces of film that I saw of Skinny Bob, it struck me then the same as it strikes me today, that is an authentic piece of footage shot on film, and what you see is what you get. Now, there has been reports of that it's a puppet and it's this and it's that. I don't see anything unnatural. Look at Skinny Bob. Look at that. Look. That's not a puppet. And that's not a person in a suit, right? In a costume. It's none of that. And I'm glad that you pulled up this. This is just a small little snippet of this Skinny Bob.
Yeah, it's just a GIF.
Yeah. But That looks authentic to me. That looks authentic. And I if it's a hoax, they pulled off a good one. And I don't know how back then they made this look vintage, because that looks like old film shot in black and white of an alien being. And man,
And
I don't believe in everything. I don't even think, I've got friends that will absolutely believe anything that you tell them, anything that you show them. Oh, really? Look at that. Okay. I bless them. I get it. We need them too. But I don't get that from this video. And I will strike down something if it's bogus, man, if it's lights in the trees and or whatever, I'll call it out. I don't get this ever from the Skinny Bob video. I think it's authentic.
Ronan, thank you so much for the super sticker. And as we know from a lot of stories that we've encountered so far, gray aliens usually don't eat. They don't eat anything. But Skinny Bob is an exception, and he loves strawberry milkshakes.
Yep.
Which I don't blame him. Strawberry milkshakes are fantastic. But, there's another alien that likes to eat certain foods, especially the one on your t-shirt. So some aliens also love eating ramen noodles. And you know what? I also don't blame them. Ramen is delicious.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I had ramen 2 days in a row. 2 days in a row. Yep. Yesterday I had ramen, my classic recipe with chili without beans.
Rock on.
And Parmesan cheese. Man. Wow, man. And today, cup of noodles.
Ooh, cup-o noodles with the O.
Cup. Did I say cuppa? Cup-o. With marinara sauce.
Interesting.
Just like a couple of spoonfuls, not a lot.
Okay.
Just, change the color, but you get the, so today, chicken cup-o.
Well, for the most part, it's believed that there's a lot of stories that grays actually absorb food through their skin, and they also excrete waste through their skin.
Mm-hmm.
Which there is one animal on this planet that can do that, and that's the hagfish. That is the only creature that can do that on Earth, at least at this point in time, where we're still discovering new species on a continuous basis. But from our understanding right now, there is only one creature that can do exactly what these gray beings can do. So that also makes you question, well, is the hagfish alien? Well,
oh, man, the hagfish, that is the nastiest, scariest. That is just gnarly. That's why that thing is in all the alien movies. The hagfish thing is nasty, man. That thing is absolutely nasty. So, do they do sushi? Hagfish sushi?
Oh, I'm not aware of that.
Grotesque. Hagfish are grotesque. And I've also heard that they get their nourishment through sunlight.
I haven't heard that one.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah. So does that mean, okay, so Cristina, cover your ears. Is that why they don't have a pee-pee?
That makes you question, how do they reproduce? And they also have tiny, tiny mouths, no apparent teeth, so that shows that they simply cannot eat. But, right, from the encounters that we've read so far, grays do not have genitalia, so it makes you question how do they reproduce.
When the first time I saw the alien autopsy film, right, and the camera's moving around, and they do the crotch shot, I'm like, what is there? He doesn't have a pee-pee.
Well, they look like artificial clones, a hybrid of technology or biology, maybe.
Yeah, the only thing, maybe that was the mistake as when they hoaxed the alien autopsy film, is ripping open the rib cage, taking out lungs and organs and things. If it's robotic and you've got no stuff, then you're not going to the bathroom, right? You're not reproducing. Maybe you're not biological. So why would you need organs and a rib cage from the alien autopsy film? So okay, so back to the points though, is when you're traveling, this is just points to ponder here. I bring it up all the time. Where are the beds? Where's the kitchen? What are you doing on that ship in a little area with just a chair for 1,000 years? How are you getting past that? How are you not sleeping and resting? How are you not eating? And where does all the waste go? And the garbage? And where's the food stored? You would have to have all of this stuff on board these tiny craft. And there's an absence of that. So we have to take all of this into consideration, don't we? We just have to.
We do, and so much so, I read the book to really get my hands on everything. I read the book called Gray Aliens and the Harvesting of the Souls by Nigel Kerner, and he goes ahead and talks about that the Greys are cloned being with no direct connection to the Godhead and can never have such a connection. They cannot understand this simply because they have no understanding of anything beyond the purely physical. Thus, and I'm quoting here, thus they abduct us, conduct experiments on sperm and ova, and create hybrid beings in the vain hope of somehow writing our souls into a capacity for birth. Now, Jimmy, my next question, why are they here? I mean, abduction accounts really soared to high numbers in the late 80s and 90s, but not so much in recent years, right? I mean, I've read accounts of their hybridization programs, but did they finish with it?
According to, okay, but we're talking about way too many different species out here. So which one are we talking about? And if we go to Bashar, and I was just with Bashar a couple of weeks ago, and it was great, and the presentation was amazing. And once again, Bashar spoke. Some questions were asked about who Bashar is, and I've heard this from Bashar a few times over the years. This is what Bashar says, that they have evolved over time, but they had to leave their planet and their original appearance, which and to speak directly from what Bashar said, we appear like what you have described as alien grays. So that's what Bashar looks like. But Bashar says that they have evolved beyond that, and that they are altering their DNA in combination with ours. And they've done this for a long time, to evolve as a species so that they could survive. Now, that's just their species and where they come from. But so I asked Bashar directly. I said, "What about the other ETs? The other people on your ship? He's above Los Angeles as we speak, and they're up there right now." And I said, "Do you guys? You're funny, Bashar. You have a good sense of humor. Do your gray alien brothers laugh at your jokes?" Right? And he said, Yes, but we also laugh at you. And we all laughed. And it goes back to my point of emotion and lack of emotion by some descriptions. Others say it's the opposite. And that is just one focus of one species from one star system, Bashar. And isn't that interesting? It's unbelievably obvious. There's got to be multiples because the other part, why are they here? Bashar, they're here for a lot of different reasons. Whitley Strieber has evolved over time into why they are here. And from the beginning and his first encounters to what is going on now, which is a suggestion that they may be us in the afterlife. Okay. That when we die, we go to this other world, this other dimension, and we are now them. And that's what represents us coming back. And it's not only the great, but the little blue guys that he has described too as well. And then the other part is that they are us from the future. Now, going back to H.G. Wells and his description of how we would possibly evolve and how we would change over time, I think that no matter what, we would get rid of these meat suits, right? These hold us back, disease, age, and everything else. Would we evolve into a light being, a light body, something that is not this, something that degrades and breaks apart and starts to fail over time? Would we evolve into something else? Well, the possibility of them, and Lou Elizondo has suggested this too as well, and others, that the Greys are us from the future. Nothing more than that. Not an interstellar spacefaring species coming by here to hang out with us. That it is just something very simple. It's us from the future coming back and hanging out.
I mean, that's an interesting aspect to take on. And you mentioned Whitley Strieber, and you're right. He doesn't see them as strictly aliens anymore. But I kind of keep away from all the channel stuff, Bashar and others. I just can't get a grip of the whole channeling alien stuff, at least not yet. So I don't know anything that Bashar has said. So please forgive me on that. But
Be patient. Be patient. You'll be all there in a few months.
But that doesn't mean that I see it as invalid, just that I'm not there yet looking into that kind of stuff. But it does seem to me that there are so very few reports and accounts of gray abducting people in recent years compared to the 80s and 90s. Why do you think that is?
Hold on, I was looking at the PP comments in. Ask me that again. I caught the first half.
Why do you think we're seeing a lot less abduction cases in present day compared to the 80s and 90s?
I don't know that we are. I just don't know that. Publicly, coming out. Well, there's a lot of things that are different today.
Well, involving accounts of Greys, at least.
But
I mean, that's what I mean.
But what about landings and craft landings and sightings like that? We don't have that like we used to as well. So things have changed. Cattle mutilations and everything that we went through in the 70s, 60s, and 70s, that seems to have trailed off too as well. And then the other side of it seems to be, and certainly what I have witnessed myself, is completely on the rise, which is there are craft appearing and disappearing here. And is it that those that were here before that were abducting, that were making contact, like my little incident in 1995? Is it that those species have moved on, right? That
That's a
race
great
of
point.
beings is doing something else, and then now we've got some other civilizations that are checking us out with different forms. I think that today we are seeing three specific types of craft today. I think that one of them may have life forms on it, and those are the bigger craft, and like one specifically that I have seen that was just completely huge. All right, so is that void of life on it? I don't think so. But these plasma ships and the Tic Tacs and these smaller craft that are seen all over the place today, would those be abducting people? Probably not. So that would explain a lot of the abduction phenomena being less prevalent and not out front like it was before 2010. Because before that, going back throughout history, abductions happened for thousands of years. It was all the time. We're not having that today, and I don't know why.
Well, Justin states more people go missing today than ever. And if you follow Missing 411 Dave Politis, a lot of those disappearances seem to get swept under the rug. And I wonder if it has been the Greys piloting the UFOs that have interfered with nuclear technology at bases and installations across the planet. Just hitting on what you mentioned, it seems like it's plausible.
Well, I did the numbers on this before we get to the end of the show. I've done this a couple of times over the years, Cristina, and anybody can go and look at this. There are plenty of data sets on the web where you can check this out. But look at the numbers for missing people in the world in 2021, 2020. Look at the missing people in the United States last year. Go look at those numbers. And it's in the millions. It's like this crazy, where is like without a trace, right? So I don't know. And it's so funny how the excuses are made for this. Well, maybe they just wanted to disappear. Maybe it's a wife that had an abusive marriage and she just disappeared. Maybe it's a husband getting away and just wants to disappear. Well, that doesn't account for these. I'm sure that happens a lot, but it doesn't account for these millions and millions of numbers, including missing children. The numbers are unbelievably huge, and I didn't know that they were that big. You're thinking, oh, here in the United States, how many people go missing in a year? What is it, 1,000, 2,000, 3,000? Oh, no. It is a huge number. And David Politis, who does excellent work, and I have so much great respect for him, he's dealing with hundreds of cases. Hundreds. It's a tiny little sliver compared to what is going on in the United States in a year. It's a huge number. Huge. Somebody posted.
The cases that he does look at kind of falls under that 1% that simply cannot be explained. A lot of people that do go missing end up found within 7 days to maybe 30 days, give or take, either alive or dead. But there's that small percentage that there just simply isn't a trail, not a paper trail, not any kind of trail. And those are the cases that he looks at. So those are hundreds of cases of that 1%. So Deb says, I have a great Bigfoot update for Fader Night. Great information. Great show on the Greys. Thanks, Deb. And last, let's finish on this question. Some abduction stories talk about people seeing owls and in strange places, like in their bedroom, like huge owls. There definitely seems to be some kind of mind distortion effect. Could it be that the Greys tried to appear in a form of something that we are familiar with, or our fearful and confused brain just interprets them as owls as a mind protection switch instead of panic mode?
Yes, keep going.
Well, what do you think about that? Do you think that's it? Or do you think
Uh,
there's more to it?
I'm looking at the numbers for missing people in the world in 2021. Okay, in the United States, 303,441.
That's a lot.
You think? And it's all broken down. Rhode Island, and there you go. Man, that is a lot. That is crazy. Okay. Here's the first references that I got about this. And I think maybe it was it David Marler that first spoke to me about this. And then when you start to go through history and the modern phenomena side of this with owls, and then because I didn't realize how many contact cases involved owls. I didn't know it was so prevalent. But go back throughout history. And is it because owls are fascinating and beautiful and cool and mysterious and all of that? Sure. Yeah. Makes for great art. But look at the symbology of owls throughout history and ancient history, and the ties to the paranormal and the supernatural and ET. This has been going on for a very long time. And I can't tell you how many witnesses have told me. So, Jimmy, I was camping. I looked up, and there was a white owl there. And then I looked I have never seen a white owl before in my life. And I looked to my left, and there's 3 alien beings. And the next thing you know, I'm missing time, and I'm on a spacecraft. Did we lose you?
No, I'm right here. I was just coughing. Sorry. Continue.
You've really taken control of this show, and what a great conversation today. But I really, really enjoy your research and the way that you ponder the significance of all of this and take things into consideration. I remember back in the day, 8 months ago, you would not interject your opinion on anything. No, Jimmy, no, just the facts. No, not interested. No, not going there. Don't care. And you've blossomed.
Thanks,
You blossomed.
Jimmy.
Yeah, really well done. Great show today. Listen, everybody, I'm going to say goodbye. I'm looking at the clock.
Yes, so thank you. Go ahead.
Number 2, it's Fader night tonight, and I'll see everybody over there. It's open lines, and another great show today with you, Cristina. Thank you so much. Goodbye, everybody. I'll see you tonight on the show.
Well, it's always a pleasure to have you. And Tom says, Cristina and Jimmy, can you please ask Lou if he's ever been to Antarctica? I mean, has he? I haven't heard him say that.
There's a joke there. I'm just going to let it go.
Oh, it's a joke?
I'll see everybody tonight.
All right. Bye, Jimmy. Thank you. Oh, Ronan, thank you as well. Thank you so much. Always supporting the channel. Really appreciate it. And that is it for today's show. I thought it went really well. There's a lot of things that were covered and some things that weren't. Maybe we can do a part 2. Not too sure yet, but please share this show. We are so close to 10,000 subscribers after 2 years. So please subscribe and share, and also listen to the music that I'm making. We got 3 tracks on right now. One comes out every single Wednesday. So there's a lot more updates coming on for this channel that I cannot wait to share with you. Thank you, everyone, for being in the live chat, for the super chats, for the super stickers, for all the YouTube members, for all the Patreon. You guys are so fantastic, and this simply would not be possible without you. Be safe, and remember, keep your eyes on the skies.